I had BBC America quite soon after we moved to the States, and they were showing Cracker, which I had seen in the UK and not paid much attention to, but then when I read more about it, I read it was the same writer as and I thought I'll watch it, and it still is one of the best dramas ITV have ever done. It was really deep. The characters were just really well drawn and felt, again, what I like in a drama, they felt really real. They felt like somebody you could meet and have a chat to. The language was very different because Fitz was a psychologist, and I'd never come across one of those on the telly before. It was unique in that wasn't the way crime dramas were done at the time. It was still very Inspector Morsey in that era. Each story would be 3 episodes, but then the next story would start, but it would still have the same arc. So you had Fitz's police colleague, Jane Palhaligan, being raped in one story, but then it carried on into the next story of who was the rapist and all that sort of thing. Then you had Fitz's wife, played by Barbara Flynn, having an affair with his brother, and all these little side things that would carry on alongside the in-depthness of the crime stories. What I liked about it, it wasn't a whodunit, it was sort of a why-done-it, and I like following the people doing these horrendous crimes and not thinking all the time, I wonder who's done this. It wasn't sort of a Broadchurch where you're kept in the dark. Often Fitz got the profile completely wrong, which was an interesting idea. And Christopher... Go on, Gary, sorry.
I was going to say, I think in that sense it was quite ahead of its time. I don't think shows at that point were more kind of dealing with who did it. And as you say, Cracker was a lot of why rather than how and who.
And there's 2 shows on this list that when I watch certain bits of it, they still give me goosebumps. And Cracker's the first one, where Christopher Eccleston, who'd played sort of the police chief, is killed quite brutally in the first episode of series 2 by...
I remember this.
Robert Carlyle.
I think this is the only one I've actually watched.
These aren't ordinary dramas. These are desert island dramas.
Who are you? What do I look like? What do you want? What do I look like? What do I sound like? Sunreader, fascist, football supporter, hooligan, yeah.
Would you please tell me what you're doing in this office?
This is Mozart, right? Piano Concerto number 21 in C major, yeah?
Yes.
This was my father's. He fought for this country. Africa, Egypt, France, Italy. He died a week ago and there was 10 people at his funeral. You know why there was 10 people at his funeral? Because he was only a white, working class man, so he didn't matter. He didn't bleed matter.
I'm sorry.
You're sorry?
Yes.
I was gonna kill a Sun reporter. I am gonna kill a Sun reporter. But meanwhile, you'll do.
The dramas that shaped us.
Robert Carlyle played a sort of a racist. He'd been affected by Hillsborough. He was at Hillsborough at the time. He played a racist football fan, a skinhead, who was unhinged and killed Christopher Eccleston's character quite brutally. And there's a scene where he chases him through a supermarket and then sort of confronts him in his own living room and ends up stabbing Christopher Eccleston. And there's a great scene which, in true Jimmy McGovern style, is dramatic without being melodramatic, where Christopher Eccleston is saying, "This is a dying man's statement, get the bastard, he's running this way," and then he dies in the street.
Luke's Desert Island Dramas.
You're a DCI. I'm gonna kill a lot of busies. But I thought I'd start at the top.
Please help me.
Well, I'd like to, but I'm a bit pushed. You know how it is.
I've got a wife and child.
I had a wife and child once.
Bilborough to control.
Control
Control receiving.
I've been stabbed.
State your position. Over.
I don't know my position. I chased the man and I'm in his house.
Can you see a phone? Over.
No, I'm going to the front. I'm losing a lot of blood. Moving makes it worse.
Letters, envelopes, something with an address.
Nothing! Every time I move, it opens up the wound. I'm dying. I'm in the hall.
Where did you chase him from?
Supermarket. Bridge Road. We're out for about half a mile.
All units proceed to within half a mile of Bridge Road.
He's bald. Brown eyes combat. Yeah, I can get the bastard.
Is there a street sign at a landmark? Anything like that?
Nothing. There's nobody in the street. There's not a bloody soul. This is evidence. This is a dying man's statement. I know what a defence lawyer will try to do. I'm of sound mind. I'm frightened, yeah, I don't want to die. I'm frightened, but I'm thinking straight. He had a photocopy of Nolan.
Knock on a door.
Pinned to the wall.
Knock on a door.
He fully intended to kill me. He stabbed me.
Bloody door.
I can't get up the steps. He stabbed me in cold blood. I want you to get this bastard, Jimmy, okay? For me and Katrina. Get the bastard.
Jimmy McGovern is just, when he's passionate about a subject, it really comes through, and it's not patronising, and he doesn't beat you over the head with it, and you really feel like you're watching something with depth and with opinion wrapped around it. And of course he left the show, then Paul Abbott took over, so I became interested in who Paul Abbott was. I would hope that, like every show on everybody else's list, that if you got the Cracker box set, that it would still hold up today, and I think it would, only because it deals with themes that we're still coming across today: hatred and racism and football hooliganism and rape and all these other things that are sadly universal, which is a shame.
I really do remember that Robert Carlyle episode very vividly, because he was terrifying, you know, and I think that's what again propelled him into kind of superstardom as well, because it was such a great part.
The criminals, as it were, who were doing these terrible things, they were sort of humanised. So even though you didn't agree with what Robert Carlyle thought or did, they showed you his background. They showed you why he was this sort of person. Instead of saying, this is the villain, this is who you're supposed to hate, it was sort of like, this is a person who's been let down in his life. He lost his job, he couldn't get over Hillsborough, and that's what turned him into this awful person. Then of course Jimmy McGovern himself, a big supporter of the Hillsborough families, and wrote the drama on ITV Hillsborough, which was on a few years ago.